Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gooner Ramble. Akhil and I have been enjoying the Emery start so much, and of course, I've been drinking quite a bit. I don't know how many JD and Cokes Akhil's had, but
loads.
We're just now
loads. It's been great.
We're just now getting back into the swing of things. We're going to talk a little Arsenal today, and as I just introduced Akhil, he's with us again this season.
Yeah.
Actually, I have to call him boss now.
Well, no, Rick, I got to say as well, right? It's we've had the best summer on record ever. So you can imagine that beer garden's just been absolutely flowing this summer. And you know what? The weather still isn't too bad, actually. So we've just, that JD cider beer. It's been great, mate. It's been great.
Very good, very good. And joining us for this podcast, we have Suburban Gooner. Suburban Gooner.
See, easy for you to say.
I've only had a few Guinness today.
Can I just say, the amount of talking of alcohol you're doing is not helping the fact that I've been teetotal for about 4 weeks now. And next week I'm running the Amsterdam Marathon.
Oh, wow.
That's why I've been teetotal. So things have got so desperate that I've actually bought, that seed lip gin, which is like non-alcoholic gin. That's what I've been drinking, non-alcoholic gin.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't work.
Wow.
No,
there is like that.
That's all I can tell you.
There is that non-alcoholic beer as well. I don't know. I've never tried it, obviously.
There are some horrendous ones, but the best one they've got is Piston Head. is half decent. It's almost palatable.
Piss Head?
It's not as Piston.
I know. And sorry, I must introduce you, Rick, properly, actually, because people would have heard your voice a little bit. You have been on the odd podcast, but for everyone who's listening, Rick is actually the glue of this whole podcast. He's very much the skipper, and he's totally the he's that Gilberto Silva, that invisible wall, because Rick is our main editor. He puts this together after we've normally messed it up and our sound quality is awful and all sorts of stuff have gone on, and Rick always sorts this out and he gets it out there for you guys to listen to. So welcome, Rick, as well, I think.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, I usually do sit in the background, don't say a lot, but we're going to have to pick up the slack because we got some guys doing a radio show now. Chris, do you want to tell us a little bit about the radio show that I know Giles and...
They've left us.
Yeah. I haven't. I'm here. I'm here for you as always. I love doing the Gooner Ramble. The more the merrier. The more times I can do it, the better. So yeah, we do a radio show every single Wednesday night. It's on a radio station that's based in London on the South Bank called Love Sport. It's a relatively new radio station, and they're really focusing on trying to get more fan chat. So rather than some of the other sports radio stations, for which obviously they shall remain nameless, which can be it feels a little bit, what's the radio equivalent of clickbaity, noisebaity?
Something like that.
But yeah, so for us, it's more about, and for the guys at Love Sport, it was more about getting some fans in, just some ordinary guys, just to talk about what's happening. So yeah, we're on 558 AM. Or DAB digital radio, searching for Love Sport. I think it's a London DAB digital radio station, but I think we do get some callers in, or we've had 1 or 2 callers in. One from Africa we had in a few weeks ago, so it is starting to grow. But it's just us having a chat, really, more than anything else. It's just lads having a chat about all things Arsenal for an hour and a half, and yeah, that's it. Very good.
And I know Dave went over there as well. He's got a new book out, actually.
Yeah, he has. He'd be better to tell you about that. Loads of rhyming.
He is gonna be on the podcast in a few weeks, actually, telling us about it and just telling us a little bit about his book. So he will be on soon.
Put him under pressure and see if you can get him to rhyme. I couldn't get him to rhyme last week on the spot. So see if you can put him under pressure to do something on the spot.
Let's hope he's not listening to this, because then he'll suddenly be very prepared.
He'll start writing prose now.
Exactly. He probably already started.
Oh, goodness. Well, anyway, let's kick it off with, as you said, Akhil, it was a very exciting summer. A lot of change, a lot of things happening. It didn't necessarily start with the new coach. We can't call him the manager, I guess. He's the head coach.
Oh, he's the head coach.
Yeah. But we did get a new one in, and we signed a few players. And coming into the season, I think there was a renewed excitement about Arsenal. Not because we weren't doing – I mean, we came off a bad season. But I think just change after so many years of knowing the same thing, led to a little excitement. So talk a little bit about that. Let us know how you felt as well.
I think, you know what, people know the admiration and respect I had for Arsene Wenger, and I've often had a bit of stick for it. But you know what, it's been very refreshing now. And in a way, I think you can, what I don't get is that there's that weird rule at the moment where you're not allowed to talk about anything Arsene Wenger related. I tweeted what he had said about Aaron Ramsey and Arsene Wenger and Thierry Henry, and there was that whole weird. Some people get a bit weird about it and kind of tell you to not live in the past and all that sort of things. But then they themselves talk about past players and ex-players, but it seems to be a funny set of rules. But for me, whatever's happened has happened. We're now in a new era, and I'm absolutely loving this new era. Unai Emery has come in. He had a very, very tough start, Man City and Chelsea, but those 10 minutes at Chelsea, 15 minutes when we absolutely had them, we were going, we scored the 2 goals, we could have scored 5. That's the moment I realised that, we are going to play exciting football. We are. And since then, there've been 9 in a row. There've been a few lucky wins in there. You think about if Everton had taken their chances or Watford or West Ham went 1 up. But generally, we've won those games. It doesn't matter how you win, certainly at the start of the season and certainly when you're in a new job. And I think that performance at Fulham was just, it was one of the best away days I've had in a while. It was a happy atmosphere. Performance was great. He's got some players really playing. You look at Alex Iwobi, who looks like a different player. Danny Welbeck's playing and working as hard as ever. Even players like Mustafi. I mean, against Fulham, even Mustafi, I thought he had a great game, and you didn't notice him. With Mustafi, he's always kind of, slipping over or just doing something that makes you notice him. Whereas I thought at Fulham, he did not put a foot wrong. I think Hector Bellerin is playing better. He's even got Petr Cech playing better. I know he's injured at the moment, but there's been a couple of dodgy passes and a couple of potential own goal opportunities for Cech. But generally, the whole team is playing well, and I got to admit, I'm absolutely loving this new era. I'm loving what Unai Emery's doing, and long may it continue. Chris?
And
yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I think that's a really, really good point, actually. I liked what you're saying about Wenger as well is very interesting. It's almost as if, when you meet somebody new and, you don't want to talk about your ex in case it sort of scares them away.
Yeah.
It's almost like it feels like that, doesn't it, with Wenger? And it's almost as if people can't make the distinction. The cord has been cut from the Wenger era, but it's still too raw for too many people. It's probably the same as if people start talking about a statue, then you would get people absolutely pummeling you online through social channels if you start talking about a statue. But I would guarantee that of all of those people that would pummel you online, within 2 to 3 years, if you start mentioning a statue, you almost unanimously the fan base would probably change. So I think it's just there's an element of probably it's a bit raw for people. It's the talking about the ex syndrome, isn't it? And then we've got this new chap come in, Emery, and it's a fresh voice. It's a new voice, and he's got a new coaching team. And I've just I've just been thinking about, as you were saying that, when a team is doing terribly, the Evertons of this world, and they get in someone like Sam Allardyce, and people talk about that new manager bounce.
Yeah.
Well, it was difficult to get that new manager bounce when you're playing the champions, and then a very good, well set up Chelsea team. Although, like you said, we probably should have still beaten them actually in hindsight. And now we're starting to see an element of it. There's always going to be difficulty trying to implement new ideas when the culture and the ethos of a club have been so embedded within the vision of one person for 20 years. So that was always going to take time. But it felt to me, what we said about the Fulham, that felt to me like we were starting to see a little bit more of the cogs of Emery's, the fruits of his labour starting to come through. And it might even take another few games. And I'm looking in the future at that Liverpool game, which is, I think it's 3 Premier League matches time. And that feels like that's going to be the big litmus test. We can afford to have people getting on our backs about the lack of XG that we've got. But ultimately, that Liverpool game, at the moment, it's about building momentum and confidence. And if we win the next, I think it's 2 or 3 games in the league, and we go to Liverpool off the back of, I don't know, a 10-game winning streak, 11-game winning streak, then we can really start to see, what's Emery going to do here? Is he going to set up the team not to be beaten, or is he going to say, I'm going to go for you? I'm going to go for you, Liverpool, because they're a good team, but they don't look as scary as they did when I was thinking about them at the beginning of the season.
Well, their 40-goal scorer is only scoring at home. He's not scoring away,
Mm-hmm.
so. I mean, someone's going to play this back, aren't they, when he scores at the Emirates? But yeah, generally, he's not scoring.
Yeah, and I know it's still early in the season, probably too early to assess Emery. But Akhil, what tactically have you recognized the difference Emery has brought to the team?
Well, of course, he's working, he's playing out from the back, and you know what? Under Arsene Wenger at the end, we did do a bit of that, but it's a lot more noticeable now. Every, first option is always passing through to your centre backs and then out wide. That's kind of a standard thing. And obviously, Petr Cech has taken a bit of stick. There's been a couple of moments, as we mentioned, but generally, I mean, it always makes me laugh. Well, not makes me laugh, but it's always noticeable when someone comes out and feels they have to defend their record and gives you a stat that's clearly been researched by the stats team. And I think a month ago, Petr Cech said that he's done, over 600 passes and only 3 have led to mistakes or something like that. And you always know that you're a little bit desperate when something like that comes up. But obviously we've noticed that. We've noticed Socrates has come in. We weren't quite sure what was going to happen at the back. Callum Chambers obviously went on loan. So Socrates and Mustafi started the season. Rob Holding has come in recently due to injury, but generally Socrates I thought he's got better and better each game. Actually, first couple of games, I wasn't too sure on him, but he's definitely won me over. Yeah. He's definitely won me over.
But he has persistently improved, yes.
Absolutely. I think Hector Bellerin is now starting to have a better season. And then it's just that little bit of this competition for places, you feel. At Fulham, Welbeck and Iwobi started. Mkhitaryan started the season. And then hasn't really, he hasn't started Premier League games since. He's played in the Cup. You had Aaron Ramsey and Mesut Ozil who have been dropped every so often when they haven't performed, and so you feel that's what's different. We're playing from the back. Defensively, we've improved a little bit. Torreira's just made it up. He's a beauty, that lad. He's going to be absolutely great. And then you just notice there's a little bit more. There's no favourites anymore. Under Arsene Wenger, there were favourites. You felt there were favourites. You felt there were certain players that would start every week if they were fit. Under Unai Emery, you're not sure. I know Aubameyang might have sort of had a bit of illness last week, but at Fulham, he didn't start. He looked fine when he came on, so he could have started, but he didn't. So that's what I'm loving about this Unai Emery thing, that every player is on their toes, competition for places, and again, long may it continue. And I mean, what have you thought, Rick, from being out there? What's the, being kind of away from it a little bit, so to speak? What have you thought? What have fans thought? You're a part of a big supporters group. How have you guys reacted to it?
We've reacted to the persistence in playing out from the back quite a bit. It's noticeable and every once in a while frightening. But
absolutely.
It is much more persistent than it was under Wenger. The other thing we've noticed, and the exciting part of it is taking chances up top with through balls or balls over the top, things that I think under Wenger a lot of players were reluctant to always try. It used to frustrate me years ago seeing strikers make runs and the midfield just sit there and look at them. Yeah, looking around for the sideways path. And we seem to be taking those chances now. They're not always going to work out, but if you're not taking them, you're not going to frighten your opponent at all. And that's one of the comments I made. I think it was Chelsea. They were just running us over because we had nothing going forward. I mean, there was about a 20-minute period there at the end of the first half. They were just running us over. And it was all because we posed no threat to them. They didn't have to defend. And I think that was, we had to turn that around a little bit in the second half. But I do like the fact that we are doing that now. So that's the other thing I've noticed. I don't know.
It's interesting. It's interesting, actually. That Chelsea game is really interesting because the first 20 minutes were pretty dire, weren't they? And I think one of the things we're starting to see with Emery is that he's almost each game. He's almost like it's a bit of a reset, and he's having to learn new things about his squad and his players and how he's going to set up. And it's almost as if like rather than the archetypal Arsene Wenger ethos was, I'm going to build a system. I'm going to get players, technical players that have a certain type of ability, and we're going to play in this style, and we're going to repetitively play in this style. So in effect, it doesn't really matter who the opposition are, because this is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to build up. Emery's taking a different approach, because he's saying, well, actually, I'm going to look at the opposition here, and I'm going to try and play on the weaknesses of the other. And that's what we've, as a fan base, we've spent years, the latter part of Wenger's years, crying out for Wenger to do that. He just didn't. And it felt like a dated, Arsene Wenger's formula felt like a dated formula from the early 2000s. And I think where we're at the moment is we've got a guy who's still adapting, he's still changing it. You know, the fact that we suddenly switched to playing two up top at the weekend against Fulham, you know, nobody saw that coming. In fact, I'm convinced that Slavisa Jokanovic probably set up his team with three at the back, thinking, well, Arsenal are going to play this way because this is how they've set up with, you know, the 4-2-3-1 or whatever it is, with the fullbacks pushing on. So I'm actually going to play. This is the formation I'm going to play with three at the back to see if I can nullify, firstly, their main central player, but also the inverted wingers that they've got. And Emery just clearly thought, well, I reckon people think that they've got my number here, so I'm going to switch things up. And it works brilliantly. It works really well. And like you said, Ax, this meritocracy that Emery's building is good for all the players as well, because they're all feeling like they can all be part of the setup. Yeah. You know, it's not, oh, I'm going to be playing every single Thursday and then the occasional Wednesday if we get through to the latter stages of the League Cup. So, you know, I might as well not even bother about, you know, not bother, not that they're not going to bother trying, but it's almost as if it doesn't matter what I can do a weekend. I'm never going to play at the weekend. Yeah. The playing out from the back is really interesting. I don't know if this is just me seeing this, but I feel like in the last 3 games or maybe 4 games, we've become a little bit more organic with our playing out from the back, because it feels like at the beginning of the season it was almost as if they were told, you play out from the back. And if you don't play out from the back, you ain't going to get games. And it feels like, I think it was that game against Vorskla, which was Leno's first game. Yeah. We're all expecting him to play out from the back, and, you know, this guy that never kicks it long. Leno kicked it long a couple of times. It's almost as if after that game, Cech came in, and it's almost as if they said to Cech, well, look, mate, you don't have to go short every time. Yeah. You can, if you don't see anything on, go long, you know, and we'll try something different, mix it up. Yeah. And after that game, I feel that was one where I think, I can't remember if that was the Everton game where Cech had an absolute blinder, but it almost they were mixing it up. Cech was thinking, if I can't go short, I'm just going to go long, and that's what I wanted to see. We need to see variation. You can't be too predictable, because you can. You know, we were starting even at the beginning of the season. It was almost as if like, oh God, now we know how the entire season's going to go. We're going to play out. We're going to split our centre halves. And every single team is going to go, right, everyone push forward because we can force Arsenal into errors here.
I think, Chris, what you said about sort of the Arsene Wenger era actually is spot on. And that was always the sort of bugbear was you're right. So it was always I'll set my team up. We play this way. If we play our game, we'll beat whoever's in front of us. It doesn't matter who it is. And when in the early, you know, the first 10 years, when he was bringing these kind of gem of the players through, you know, buying them pretty cheap, improving them, making them better than everyone else. So Thierry, Patrick Vieira, Robert Pires, Freddie, Gilberto, also the whole lot, you knew that if this system works and those players in the system work, why? Because they are actually better than anyone else. Okay, Manchester United were probably level, and then we had some great battles, but generally we're better than everyone else. As time went on, those better players went, obviously, because they got old, they left, they retired, or went to other teams, sorry. We couldn't potentially find those gems as much because football changed. So suddenly the players we were bringing were good players, but maybe not as good as the Thierry, you know, Robin Van Persie, Cesc Fabregas probably different, but Nasri, Song, you know, they're all very good players, but they weren't Pires, Henry, Ljungberg. And then what also happened was Chelsea came through, Man City came through, and suddenly you didn't need to buy gems, you could actually buy the real thing. So, you know, when we brought through Thierry Henry, there was a Ronaldinho, there was a Samuel Eto'o. We went the Thierry Henry way, who was then level with Samuel Eto'o and Ronaldinho. But in sort of post 2006, when Man City could buy the Aguero and Chelsea could buy the Drogbas and Essien and co, we suddenly had inferior players. They had better players. They had the resources, but we were still trying to do the same thing. We still had that system, and we fit these new players into that system. And suddenly, it wasn't a case of, actually, we're better than you, so we'll just play our way. It was actually, if we have a good day, we might beat you. And that was when really that game plan should have changed a little bit and maybe a bit more of a balance. And then we look at the opposition, we look at actually how can we attack them? Where's their weak link? That's their weak link. Okay, today we're going to swap Nasri, not playing from the right, we're going to play him from the left because actually their right back's worse than their left back, or, whatever it is. And I think we didn't do that enough. And that Chelsea game, we obviously targeted Alonso. We looked on that Chelsea team and thought Alonso is better going forward, scores bags of goals. He's what I call a fantasy football player. He gets you points because he scores goals, takes set pieces, lovely going forward, but you get him on the other end and he absolutely struggles. And Unai Emery identified that, and what did he get? He got Alex Iwobi and Mkhitaryan absolutely going at him. Absolutely going at him. Hector Bellerin, go on son, just go. You just go. And then you had a midfielder often dropping in a little bit to cover that space if they countered. And Alonso was scared. He was absolutely scared. He was the happiest man when that half-time whistle went at Stamford Bridge, because he thought, whoa, wow, that was tough. And then obviously in the second half, the one disappointment and maybe a minor criticism was of Unai Emery was we didn't carry on doing that. Then we kind of got into this balance mode where our fullbacks weren't really going. We I don't know if we wanted the draw. I don't know, first big game away from home. There was a little bit of we were cautious then. And then obviously what happened? Alonso suddenly then thought, I don't need to defend anymore. They're not coming at me. I'm going to go and do what I'm good at. Pops up and scores the winner. So there was a learning curve there, and there's no criticism for Unai Emery and the team there. But the fact that he was looking at their weak spot and going for it, I think was where Arsene Wenger ultimately failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does. Now go on, Rick. Sorry.
I was just going to say, when we, again, going back to that point, when we make them defend, we had the upper hand. But when they didn't have to, they could just run at us all day, and that's what resulted in, I think, the goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a learning curve, that was his second game, so it takes time. He's still learning these players as well.
And Chris, what do you think we still need to work on? What are you seeing?
Well, I think. So I mentioned obviously the organic playing out from the back, which is a positive that I've seen in the last few games, but I still feel like individual errors seem to be a thing about Arsenal. We're not going to be one of the best teams in the division if we keep having such a high propensity of individual errors. I mean, you look at the goal against Fulham, mistake by Monreal, and then Fulham are in with pretty much their only chance of the game. I think the way that we reacted to it was really, really good because, we'd been the dominant team in that first half against Fulham. And then second half, it was almost as if they'd just wound us up a little bit and we controlled possession. We really bit into the tackles in the centre of the park, and that was very, very exciting. And I think that's if you're talking about what are we learning, how are we evolving? Well, if that Fulham game can be a blueprint, snap into those tackles quicker, win the ball higher up the pitch. But also, we're going to need to work out how we find this balance between those fullbacks pushing forward and the fullbacks being isolated. You only have to look at any kind of average position of players in the Arsenal team heat map during the last half a dozen games, and you can see there's absolutely acres between Monreal or whoever's playing left back and Bellerin. And my concern there is you're going to get teams that are going to start to, when the ball breaks down, and if they're quick enough to hit us on the counter with rapid pace, then we're going to start to feel it. And I think that's what happened in the Everton game. They had Richarlison, they had Calvert-Lewin, and they had Walcott, and there was a couple of times where it felt, particularly in the first half, Richarlison looked like he had Bellerin's number. He sort of faded away in the second half, and Bellerin certainly was much more improved. But that's my concern. It's have we got enough cover? Have we got enough protection for our fullbacks?
Akhil?
Yeah, I was just going to add there on, I think these individual errors as well, there's you know, it's working as a team. So obviously you have, I think there's two types of individual errors. You have that one where one player, you know, either doesn't connect with the ball and they mistime it, or there's an easier option. They make the wrong decision. They give the ball away. But in that Fulham one, when that, and we were in a great position. We're right behind the goal. So we're actually right behind Nacho Monreal. And when Nacho Monreal got it, he had Alex Iwobi in front of him. The space was down the line. So you thought if Iwobi makes that run down the line, all Monreal has to do is just absolutely launch it towards the corner flag, and Iwobi will hopefully chase it down. What happened there was Alex Iwobi then ran infield. He ran in a cluster of Fulham players where actually the ball wasn't really on. And if it was on, it was a tougher ball, and would he have controlled it? Maybe, but likeliness was it would have been cut out. So there you had Monreal actually looking down the line where the space was, and absolutely no one there. That's not the Unai Emery way, obviously, just launch it into space. So then he did try and play that harder ball, and then obviously he didn't get much on it. It got cut out, Fulham went and scored. So it will go down as a Monreal error, but Alex Iwobi did not help him one bit. And then, you know, Alex Iwobi generally has had a good season, and I'm really glad to see that one of our own, you know, getting the chance and actually playing really well, and he's playing well for his national team as well. But that kind of error, Iwobi sold him out a little bit. That's what we need to cut out. That's what I think we need to work on. You know, that whole mindset, that Alex Iwobi thinking, I haven't got the ball here, but I'm actually more important than the guy who's got the ball, because I'm basically, if I make the wrong decision here, potentially we're going to give the ball away. So I need to make the right decision. And sadly he didn't then, and it led to a goal. But I think as time goes on, hopefully those decisions, those secondary decisions, actually are more important than the primary decision. So I think that will come, but I think players are thinking about it.
Yeah, I think one of the things I noticed that we're going to have to improve upon, especially against some of the better teams, is breaking that high press. Like you talked about, individual errors have led to a lot of chances for the opposition, and I think we need to improve a bit on breaking that high press, because we thus far haven't really shown a propensity for doing that well enough. I saw some progress here in the last few games, but I just wonder what better teams, what kind of pressure they will apply, and I'm particularly thinking Xhaka needs to increase his awareness. He doesn't seem to be aware of when pressure is on him, or aware of where his teammates are when it is. And I always think back to, you know, midfields of past, like Vieira had the athleticism to just turn on a defender and stride through the midfield. And it's Cesc that I'm thinking of right now. Every time I watch Cesc play, his head was on a swivel. He knew where to position himself, where everybody was, including the opposition and his own teammates, and that awareness, and that's what helped him be so good. And then, of course, we had a little dark period in our midfield until we put Cazorla back there, and he just owned it with his quick feet. But Xhaka doesn't have quick feet. He doesn't seem to have the athleticism that Vieira had. So, you know, lacking all of that, he needs to increase his awareness and be a little more, I think, aware of the pressure and where his outlets are. It concerns me as we're, you know, coming into a Liverpool game and things like that.
Yeah, but do you not think that there's an element of that? I feel like that's a little bit more of a tactical flex that can happen, because to me, what we're doing with Xhaka is we're playing him almost as the guy. It's almost like the Mikel Arteta role. So when Mikel Arteta was at Arsenal, he'd be the one to drop in and pick the ball off Mertesacker or Koscielny. And then he'd look up and he'd distribute. Sometimes he'd distribute 5 yards. Sometimes he'd distribute 15, 20 yards, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think that's it's not the right sort of position for Xhaka, because he is a fan. I love Xhaka. I think he's a fantastic footballer, and his vision and passing range is brilliant. It was, he was him and Ramsey were involved in Aubameyang's and our fifth goal. So Aubameyang's second and our fifth goal at the weekend, and it was straightforward. It was direct passing through the centre of the midfield. And Xhaka is somebody that if he's facing the opposition goal, Absolutely no problem. If he's facing own goal, then there's an issue. So surely the tactical flex there, and hopefully we'll see this more from Emery, is that you get somebody else to pick up the ball from deep, and you maybe even push Xhaka further upfield. So if you're saying, for example, if you've got a high press and you've got an opposition that are pressing you and they're pushing 3 or 4 players ahead, if you can then break that press, and then you've got someone like Torreira to pick the ball up, who's very good, and he's good at holding onto the ball. He's a tenacious footballer that will pick the ball up. He'll look up, and if he's got someone like Xhaka to play to, and if we've broken a press, Xhaka will find some of the forward players, and he will find them with his passing range. And then all of a sudden, we've got ourselves a break on. I could see countless goals scored for Arsenal if we can work out an effective way to get beyond the opposition's high press. And I suspect there might be an element of Emery looking at it and thinking, do I actually have the players in my defence that can do that? Is that the question?
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We got to get Xhaka facing the opposition goal rather than our own. Yeah. What do you see, Akhil?
Yeah, I want to see more of Xhaka and Torreira play, to be honest. Torreira's, he started slow, and I kind of expected that. He's obviously come from a different league. He played in the World Cup as well, and to the last 16. So I kind of expected him to start. I mean, if you remember when Granit Xhaka first came as well, Arsene Wenger was quite, he played him in the cups, and he gave him a slow introduction, and then last season he played in every game. He was the only player to participate in all 38 league games, I think. So the Torreira model hasn't been different to other models with players. So I kind of did expect that. So I just want to see them. I want to see them play a little bit more. I think Xhaka's a beautiful footballer when he's got time and space, when he can pick a pass. And I think alongside Torreira, potentially he might get a bit more time and space, because that Torreira is, I've always liked those sort of midfielders, those hungry midfielders who aren't scared of a tackle, who can, get stuck in, but can also play a little bit. And, so I'm kind of excited for that as well. And in a way, I know we're going to talk about Aaron Ramsey next, but that was always the dilemma, that can Xhaka and Ramsey play together? Do you need one more in there? If them two play, will Ramsey play as a number 10, but then where does Ozil play? If Ramsey does play as a number 10, is that creative enough? If you get Xhaka out the game, then can Ramsey and Torreira, are they going to create in those really tight moments, tight games? You're not sure. Is Ramsey better, making the late run? There were so many questions that I actually think, in a way, it might be a bit clearer, and I think I can see what Emery's trying to do.
Yeah, I got a growing man crush on Torreira as well.
Oh, he's just, I think he could have seen red a few times, to be honest, in his short time here. So I think he does need to learn the English game, but I think, he's going to be an absolute star.
Yeah. You mentioned Ramsey. We certainly cannot ignore this. Seemingly a contract was on the table and then pulled off the table.
Yeah.
It's hard to know exactly what's been on. We've only heard rumors and conjecture and things like that. But Akhil, while we're talking about it, what do you think happened with the Ramsey situation, and what do you see happening as the season goes on? I
mean, sort of looking at what has happened at the club in terms of change of manager, change of potentially the CEO going, and the last few days, Arsene Wenger spoke after Per Mertesacker's charity game and things like that. It does seem like Arsenal wanted Aaron Ramsey to stay. Arsene Wenger last night, or a couple of nights ago after the Mertesacker game, did say that Arsenal tried to, or we as in, because he was still there, we tried to extend it a few times. It could still happen. Sort of balls in Ramsey's court now. Arsenal could still, et cetera, et cetera. So it's obvious to me that they have been trying to extend, and I don't think you would wait until 9 months to go before you start conversations. The conversation probably started about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. It was obviously on the table. And footballers now have big teams, have big PR teams, have agents, have advisors, have lawyers, they have all sorts. And I think when Arsenal were going through that phase of when Sanchez left, Mkhitaryan came in, Aubameyang came in, and Mesut Ozil re-signed. All three on fairly big money. Mkhitaryan probably on slightly less than the other two. Ozil certainly on a lot more. We know he's on about 300 or so. Aubameyang's probably close to the 200 mark. Mkhitaryan probably around the 170 mark. So if we were offering Ramsey 160 to 180 and he's seen how Ozil's got 300 odd, his agents would have been saying, hang on, hold tight, sit tight. We can probably get you a better deal. Let's just see what happens. You're quite important because obviously at that stage he was still playing every game under Arsene Wenger. He was seen as quite an important player. He was playing well for Wales, so they had the power. Ivan Gazidis obviously wanted to keep him, and he was pushing those contract talks. It's quite noticeable that as soon as Ivan Gazidis has gone, it seems like that contract has been taken off the table. And the reason why I think that is, Unai Emery in the summer said, I want to give every player. He was very strong in saying this first press conference, and I was talking to Henry Winter a few days ago, because on his first ever press conference, he did the bit for the TVs, and then he sat with about 8 or 9 big kind of sport writers in the Diamond Club at the Emirates Stadium, and he talked about his vision, talked about how he'll kind of play the first few months. And he was very strong in saying that I want to give every player a chance, to kind of prove themselves a little bit. And you saw like Callum Chambers went on loan fairly late, near the deadline day. So he had obviously had a good look at Callum Chambers, decided what he wanted. And then with Ramsey, he maybe wanted to see him a little bit more. Maybe pre-season wasn't enough. He wanted to see him play. Ramsey he didn't play away at Chelsea. There was rumours of a little bit of a disagreement there. Aaron Ramsey wants to play every game. And it just, that was a bit of maybe a wake up call for Ramsey a little bit as well, that, Emery is actually, maybe he does want to play a little bit differently, but whatever. Ramsey came back in, played at number 10 a lot of the times. But then as soon as Ivan's gone, it looks like they've asked Unai Emery, where is he going to fit in? And Unai Emery's told them that maybe he's not, maybe they're not sure. Where's the priority areas? Maybe they're in different areas, and maybe Arsenal just can't justify paying Aaron Ramsey 200,000, rightly or wrongly. This is just my opinion on what I think has happened, not what I would have done or what I want. And I think that's where they've got to now, that they've thought probably would want to keep him, useful player, but at 200,000, what does that mean going forward? Does that mean we can't get someone in who's a priority area, say a centre back or whatever it is?
And you'd be paying 200 a week for someone who was seemingly not nailed down a position in this team.
Well, exactly, and I think they've sort of done that with Mkhitaryan in a way, because they're not really sure when Mkhitaryan plays, who's sitting on quite a lot of money. So can they do it to Ramsey? And I just think they've had to make a tough call, and they've made it. So it's weird, isn't it? Do you praise them for making that decision, or do you kind of think, actually, could you not have decided this earlier? We could have got 50 million for him in the summer. I don't know. It's such a dilemma. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it seems like that's what they've made.
It could just be hardball negotiations too. Maybe they felt that Ramsey's team had overestimated his value.
Yeah.
So, maybe a little wake-up call.
It'll be hard to see them going back to the negotiation table, but stranger things have happened, and things can happen. It depends on what the interest is like on Aaron Ramsey, but you do see that there are other English clubs in for him. Don't know. Time will tell. Hey, Chris?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because you look at the amount of money that supposedly he wanted, and I think you were spot on. This deal hasn't been, withdrawn. It's not been put on a table on a Monday, and then Wednesday afternoon they're all sipping, having a cup of tea, and they get a phone call saying we're whipping it away before you have a chance to think about it. His team have been sitting on this at least since the summer. So this isn't so much we're withdrawing a deal that we've only just put on the table, and more, well, you haven't signed it, so we're going to take it away, because we're not just going to leave it open for you to suddenly then say, oh, yeah, go on then, I'll sign it. So, I think it's the club trying to establish a little bit more power, which I think is very admirable. I think also, by making this decision, it feels a little bit more definitive and decisive from the club. And it feels like, to me, like they've made this decision almost as if to say, right, all right, Ramsey hasn't signed yet. We move to plan B now. And plan B is we start scouting different replacements. And I think that's what they're all doing. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if the club have half a dozen names already lined up to play not the role that Ramsey's got, because, again, I think we have a team which isn't 100% sure as to where he fits in the team. And so perhaps maybe Emery's just said, to Sven and Raul, do you know what? Give me a little bit of money and find me this sort of player with this sort of style that is a little bit different to Ramsey, and that's what I want. I think you've also got to factor in his injury record. This isn't a guy that's played 50 games a season for the last 6-7 years. So to pay someone £200,000 a week, which, I can't remember. I don't know how much it is per year, because it's that 10 million a year, 10.4 million a year. That's a lot of your wage bill that's being taken up. And if there's a guy that's going to be injured for a prolonged period of time, that's a lot of money that's just sitting on a treatment table.
Yeah, and I agree. I think Emery probably wants to look at his options, right? If I sign Aaron Ramsey, how do I bring in another player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And in a way, I just think of, obviously, with Ivan Gazidis going, the job's being split now between Raul and Vinay, and I went to the fans forum, so I represented the Arsenal Supporters Trust, and I went to the forum and got to listen to them both speak. So just briefly, so Raul's role is very much on the field matters, so footballing matters, contracts, recruitment, all that sort of stuff, and then people like Sven and Huss kind of feed into that. Vinay's roles is more off the field, the commercial. So this Adidas deal he would have worked on, and ticket pricing and all that kind of stuff would be Vinay's kind of role. But with Raul's obviously come from Barcelona, and at the fans forum he spoke a little bit about that, about how the young players that came through at Barcelona they were so important, the Messis, the PKs, the Iniesta, Xavis, because they knew the Barcelona way. They were fundamental to everything. But also it got me thinking a little bit around Barcelona, because Barcelona had a system. So when they were really successful under Guardiola, they had a system that Guardiola wanted to play and a way of playing. And there were some really, really good players that came to Barcelona, did okay, but never set the world alight. And I'm thinking Zlatan Ibrahimovic, to a lesser extent, David Villa, Thierry Henry even, three of them, they're probably three of the best strikers we've ever seen. And you think, if you had a front three of them three, you would just think, wow, I've died and gone to heaven here. But at Barcelona, they never quite fit in. Thierry used to play on the left. So did Villa at times. Zlatan obviously played centrally, but Messi then was out wide, and that didn't work. So it came like you've got these really talented players, but actually they're just not fitting into the team. So if Barcelona can do it, if Barcelona weren't scared to sell Zlatan, to let Thierry go to New York, to let David Villa move on, then, and even Ronaldinho to a lesser extent before that, and you think, well, that's maybe why Raul's not scared of losing Aaron Ramsey, even for a free, because he thinks, actually, what's the point of having a Ferrari if I can't drive it, so to speak, So if Aaron Ramsey's not going to fit in, then why are we going to carry on paying him lots of money? Why don't we get rid of him and bring in someone we can? So, Zlatan went, someone else came in who could play maybe on the left-hand side and who was a little bit more suited, Pedro or whoever it was, I just think about Raul, and I think the way he talked, he didn't say this specifically, obviously, but I just think I was reading between the lines a little bit about Barcelona, about him, and just that whole change of mindset here, from kind of Ivan Gazidis, who was a really, really intelligent man, had worked in football a long time, but he was very different to Raul, who has been more of a director of football, so has been very involved, and maybe his thinking is different, and we're seeing that with Aaron Ramsey.
Yeah. Another player that could shake up the lineup a little bit here in a few months might be Koscielny. Chris, if Koscielny returns, obviously he's gotten on in years a little bit. He's coming off a pretty horrific injury, but he's also returning to a team where the manager really doesn't have a history with him. What do you see working out should Laurent come back into the team?
Well, first things first, I think today he announced his international retirement, didn't he? Or was it yesterday? I know it's only just happened.
I saw something, actually. I didn't realise it was international retirement, but I saw something.
Yeah. He's announced his retirement. Okay. So obviously that's, from an Arsenal perspective, that's good, because it gives him an opportunity to, A, focus on Arsenal, but also, B, rest some of those aching limbs, because he's had Achilles problems for so long, for the last 3 or 4 years. Laurent Koscielny is our best defender at the club. I mean, in 3 months' time, we might be talking about Socrates if he keeps on his current trajectory. And you've got Rob Holding coming through. I think we're not going to. I still don't think we'll see Koscielny until January time establish himself, because I think he's going to need 3-4 weeks. I think he only just gets. I don't know what his training schedule is like at the moment, but I think he returns to full first team training in November. So in a few weeks' time, it's going to take him a month to get back up to speed. He'll then play maybe once or twice. He'll come on as a sub. So I can't see him being a regular until January. And at the moment, you're looking at the team that we've got. You have to say, I think he'd get into the side ahead of Mustafi, certainly. If Rob Holding continues the way that he's played the last couple of games, there might be question marks. But as it stands right now, a fully fit and at his best, and not having to inject his Achilles with some sort of magic horse placenta, would be by far and away the best thing for Arsenal Football Club.
Yeah,
I think obviously coming in from Mustafi always scares me, so I'm in favor of that. Akhil, what do you think of Koscielny's return?
Yeah, I think it's obviously it'll take a while. I don't expect to really see him till Christmas, New Year. I expect to see him maybe in the Europa League a little bit. We'll have November full training, so potentially we might play Game 5, I was thinking of the right word there. Game 5, Game 6 maybe. If we're still in the League Cup, potentially there'll be semi-finals then. So you would see him there. But I don't really expect to see him until probably third round FA Cup, and then maybe a couple of league games after that. But I think, it's one of those things where I want him to be fit, and I want him to be match fit and ready in case we need him. I think, what we lost Per obviously in the summer, and even though he hasn't contributed massively in the last few years, there's one game where he contributed, immensely. It was at Wembley against Chelsea in the FA Cup when all our centre backs were falling like flies. He
hadn't played all season.
Mustafi was out injured. Gabriel was hobbling around injured. I think Koscielny had got sent off against Everton the final. Yeah. So suddenly Per was in alongside a very young Rob Holding, and he was magnificent. And it just showed showed the value of having that one bit of experience in the squad, and I think Koscielny can be that. I think we lost a lot of leaders as well in the summer. We lost obviously Per from the sort of squad. We lost Santi Cazorla, who obviously went, and to a lesser extent Jack Wilshere as well was a leader. We obviously lost Thomas Rosicky a few years ago, so there's been a lot of senior players that have moved on now. So I think Koscielny's experience is quite valuable as well. We bought 5 new players there as well, so we've got a lot of the squad is very fresh. Aubameyang, Mkhitaryan haven't even been here a year yet. So I think off the field Koscielny will do a lot more, and I think people will say, can you justify paying someone that much because if they're not playing? But I think Koscielny will play. But will he come into the starting lineup? Will he play alongside Socrates? I'm not sure. A lot of the next month will tell. Mustafi had a good game against Fulham. Yeah, he scares me as well, Rick. But, we might see actually he develops under Emery and alongside Socrates. And actually in 6 weeks we might be thinking, actually no, Koscielny shouldn't come in because Mustafi's actually done alright. Or maybe Rob Holding gets another chance and does really well. So I think it's good to have options. I think we were a centre-back light. Because if, with Socrates injured, if one of the others got injured, we would suddenly, I think even the Greek lad, actually, Mavropanos is injured slightly as well. So, the fifth centre-back is useful. So I hope he'll come back strong, but I think it will take a little bit of time.
It's not an easy injury to come back from.
It's tough, and obviously he's nearer the end to his career than the start, so obviously it's even tougher.
Yeah, well, here's hoping he can see a few games here and there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess the final thing we'll touch on before we go and then leave it to next week is the changes in television coverage of the Premier League. Not only Premier League, but Europa League, Champions League, etc. I know over here in the U.S., we experienced a little surprise a few months ago when Arsenal being in Europa League, we were looking about how to watch Europa League matches because they were always on a network of some sort over here in the States. But this year, it's streaming only, online only. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Every game except the final is streaming only. So you have to get a subscription to watch those matches.
So how much would that cost? How much would that cost?
Oh gosh, what is it? It's a monthly. I think it's like $5 a month or something, $6 a month.
It's
Can't remember.
Huge. Yeah.
Can I tell you how maddening that was? So the last time I was drinking, funnily enough, was the Newcastle away game. I normally go to the Newcastle away game, but I couldn't make that because I was in New York. And so I turn up at the Blind Pig pub in New York
I've heard
to watch
that's
the
a
game.
good one. I've heard that's a really good one.
It's a quality, really, really good pub.
Yeah.
And I start speaking to one of the locals, and he says, "Oh yeah, is it NBC had just swapped across? So they used to have all of the 3:00 games just on their different variety of channels, but there's always one game this season now on a Saturday 3:00 kickoff that has to be that they're doing streaming online. So of course when we were in the pub and there's everyone else connecting into the Wi-Fi, it absolutely wreaks havoc with the actual streaming connection. So I watched the most jittery game, Newcastle versus Arsenal game. I think I'd ever seen.
So was that the one they were streaming for that week, that 3:00?
Yes.
You said, yeah, right, fine.
Yeah, and they're actually doing more streaming this year than they did last year. So we had to do that too. We're plugging in laptops into the overhead projector so we can watch it.
Blimey, wow.
And Akhil, I think there's more changes coming even next year as well. Is that right?
Well, there is a little bit. So the TV, it's hotting up a little bit. And actually, for listeners, there is another podcast coming probably in a few days with football writer Henry Winter, because I really wanted to dig into this subject because I'm fascinated by football issues. As a bit of a student of the game, this all fascinates me, and certainly the business model as well. So yeah, next season in England, they're introducing 7:45 kickoffs on a Saturday, which has never happened before. So you'll have, I think there's 8 7:45 kickoffs. So we obviously have Friday night football, which was introduced about 2 years ago. We now are going to have Saturday night kickoff. So that's just, it's interfering with kind of, I suppose, family time a little bit as well on a Saturday evening.
Yeah.
It will go head to head with, shows like, I know people will laugh, but Strictly Come Dancing, X Factor, they're not my sort of show, but, I know a lot of people do watch them. So suddenly there's going to be competition. Transport, it does cause a bit of chaos because trains generally, if you've got a game up north or down south, depending on where you are, then you're not likely to be able to get a train home on the Saturday night. So there's potentially a little bit more there's going to be a bit of rail misery, which is a headline you often see in the newspapers. So that's happening. And also in addition, we've had Amazon Prime, of enter the market. So they've won the right. So I think the Premier League, it works in, sort of 6 kind of packages. The package 1 is your prime time kind of Saturday 5:30 kickoffs, and then 2 would be 12:45s, 3 would be Sunday 4:00, all that kind of stuff. So they've won one of the lower ones, which is, they get to show, 20 games, over 2 bank holidays. So one is Boxing Day. So on Boxing Day, generally you get everyone playing, either Boxing Day or the day after. There might be a game the day after, but Amazon Prime have the rights to that, so they'll be able to show every single game. So my guess would be, if you're a subscriber, you can watch them for free in your package, and obviously they want to get more people subscribing. I think you can do a 30-day trial, so they'll probably let people get the trial, and then even if they can take 10% of that, 20% of that kind of, people staying on, they've done well out of it. So they'll do that in another bank holiday. So I think streaming could happen. I think, Amazon Prime is very different to obviously, BT and Sky. So I wonder if we will see kind of Facebook, Twitter, Netflix even, people, sort of other players like that really entering the market, because certainly the value of the Premier League is so massive here. People all over the world, people know how how global the Premier League is. And Lee Dixon, who you have as a pundit, did an event for me, and he was talking about it, how that it's just from when he started to now, he's seen such a level of growth that I think everyone is now seeing that there's money to be earned in the Premier League. So yeah, it'll be interesting, and obviously you can hear more on the topic with Henry Winter soon.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that. I know that as Chris said, I think the pubs are struggling with this right now because a lot of these subscriptions are meant for individuals, not for commercial use. The internet connections and the Wi-Fi aren't always the best when everybody else is in there sharing it.
Yeah, so it
can lead to some dodgy streams.
Absolutely. So you get pubs here that you need to have a commercial license. You're spot on. You can't just get, your Sky or Virgin box and show it in a pub. You need to get a special license, and obviously pubs then have to pay quite a bit. It's, $5-6 grand you're paying for a year, and you have to justify that. To get Sky and BT is quite a lot of money. It probably costs you just under 10 grand or something like that. So you do have to justify it. And then in pre-season, all the Arsenal games were on one of the other channels, which there was a slight subscription on there as well. So I think pubs in the Arsenal area were debating, should they get that, should they not? Will it bring in enough people? And kind of, it's tough. It's tough. I remember I was in a pub, where they were showing some boxing which was on Box Office. It's like a subscription, it's a pay-per-view, and they didn't have the right license, and TV license people came in and shut them down for the night. It was just, they'd broken the law pretty much. So it is all messy here, those kind of dodgy 3:00 streams and stuff. I think pubs used to show them, but they're just not showing them anymore because it's just not worth it. The fines are significant now.
You know what? The other one I realized, not only do I have the Bleacher Report, so I can watch Europa League games.
Okay.
NBC Gold for the Premier League matches that are streaming, and we've already had 2 this year. I think every team has 6, minimum of 6. Streaming only.
Yeah.
The League Cup games, at least the first couple League Cup games, have been on in the States here, ESPN Plus, which is yet another paid subscription.
Yeah.
So now I have 3 just to watch Arsenal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the League Cup games weren't even on TV here. So
yeah, at least we get to watch
the
them.
Arsenal games weren't on anyway. So yeah, it's I've actually written a piece about this that I'm gonna send you, Rick, to post.
Okay. Very
but
good.
It is getting very costly, not just for supporters going to football games, but also those who watch it on TV.
That is true, and we'll look forward to seeing that, as well as hearing from Henry Winter on that coming up soon. Chris, did you have any more experiences with streaming? And
Only, it's been a bit of a nightmare. I think my only issue with all of this, which you kind of touched on, is that these are designed, like what you hear from the Premier League or from many sort of institutional channels is this is about creating competition, but it doesn't create competition. All it does is it creates more cost for fans. That's all. That's the main sort of crux, I guess, of what I'd say. Fans have to then, I pay for my season ticket, I have Sky, I've got to get BT, now I've got to get yet another channel. This isn't creating competition. This isn't creating a better service. This is creating a more costly service.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
You know what, Chris raises a great point, because it's a question I always get asked by kind of family and stuff like that, hang on, so this is what they say to me. So hang on, you go to every game pretty much, home and away. So why the hell do you have Sky and BT if you're not actually watching it live? But I don't know, if you're a football fan, you probably want to rewatch the game. I tend to rewatch all of them, including the build up and all that kind of stuff. I like a bit of analysis stuff as well, even though that sometimes the quality can be subjective. But and when you are home, you still want to watch other big games. After coming back from Craven Cottage last week, I wanted to then watch Man City Liverpool, even though it turned into an absolute bore draw. But it was probably 2 of the most attractive teams in the country, along with Arsenal, obviously, playing. And you thought, well, you want to watch that. So it's even if you have a season ticket, you go to away games, you still probably need Sky and BT and Amazon Prime soon, because you want to watch the other games and you want to watch your own team, even if it is, repeated. So it's an expensive market, put it that way.
Yeah, and I think we got some growing pains we're going through here with especially showing it in pubs. But well, like we said, we'll hear more about that from Henry Winter. Yeah, and that we'll probably call that a day. We'll save some for next week, and we are going to get back in the saddle and get them out a little more regular here now that we've woken up.
We have. We've had a kick up the backside, haven't we?
Yeah,
there's been true. A few tweets about it as well.
Chris, thank you for joining us. Your handle is at Suburban Gooner, correct?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for having me on.
And the radio show is Wednesday nights?
Wednesday nights, 7:30 till 8. No, that's not right.
7:30 till 8.
7:30 till
half an hour.
8.
Half 8.
7 o'clock till half 8. You think I know this? I've done about 12 of them already.
Yeah. Are you sure you've been dry for a month? Because it doesn't sound like it.
Sending me insane. 7 o'clock till half 8 is. Promise.
That's the thing. Your body's used to a bit of alcohol, and now you haven't had
That's
any.
It.
You're obviously struggling here.
Yeah.
And Akhil, thank you for being on. Of course, you're going to be on a lot.
Of course.
Keep the JD and Cokes. Get you right. Keep you right.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. You know, people say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Nah. A JD and Coke keeps the doctor away.
Yes. And you're at 10 Akhil, is that correct?
I am, correct. Yeah.
Very good. And thank you for joining us, everyone. My name's Rick.
Plug your own.
I should plug my own. I never tweet.
Well, you might have to now.
I might have to. Yes, it's at Golf and Gooner. That is my Twitter handle. I'm easy to follow because you'll hardly ever see anything from me.
Too busy playing golf most weekends, aren't you?
That is true. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Please join us again. We should have another one out with Henry Winter. What do we think? Wednesday?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone. Keep listening.
Up the Arsenal.